Well, hello again, my friends and fellow Invisibles, and anyone else who might be watching this particular video. I have something to say to you today. I have a lot of work on hand at the moment. I'm busy doing, as you maybe know, a whole series on the lost tribes of Israel. And I've got other series I've planned and I have to do, but I'm interrupting all of that work because I recognise that we're living in a very, very dangerous time, and I have to give you a warning about this. You probably heard about all these riots and uprisings that are happening, not just in Britain, but all over Europe, and started to happen in other places too, I believe, in America particularly. This is actually an important wake-up call, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk to you about this and tell you what I was shown a very, very long time ago. And this was a vision that was given to me way back in 1973. And at the time, I was really, really shocked, as you can imagine. It was quite a long vision, a series of visions actually. And it was something that was, I think, recorded in my soul before I was even born. It's something I brought into this world with me when I came here. And at this time, this was shown to me. It's a bit like, in the start of Star Wars. Remember Star Wars, the original film? And it starts off with Princess Leia. She's on a spaceship traveling through space, and her spaceship's being pursued by the bad guys, and she doesn't know what to do. She has to send a message to Obi-Wan Kenobi, who, there's one person who might be able to save her. And so she gets this little robot and she records a message, and it's a kind of 3D holographic message, and it goes into this little robot, and she's captured by the bad guys, and the robot and his friendly other robot, they end up landing on this desert planet, and eventually they find Luke Skywalker, and he presses the button. He's cleaning up this robot. They think they might be able to sell it second hand. He presses the button, out pops this little figure of Princess Leia saying, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Remember that? Well, it's a bit like this, that this message was put into me, I think, even before I was born. And somehow what I was doing at the time triggered the memory of it. And I was able to play and replay and replay and replay this message over and over again until I really got it fully absorbed. And it was quite a long message. And this all happened in Oregon. I was over there. I was visiting a girlfriend that I'd met in Greece the previous year, and I was staying with her family. And so I'm calling these the Oregon Prophecies. And this is only the first of these prophecies. I have other ones to do with America as well. But we'll go into that in a later lecture. This one concerns London, and it was very dramatic. I had a whole series of visions about where I came from, how I came here from the stars before I was born. And I was shown apocalyptic visions, just like the kind of thing you read in the Bible. And if you know anything about me and my work, I've done a whole series on the book of Revelation, the Apocalypse of St. John. I've done other videos on the book of Daniel, which is also full of prophetic visions. So this has kind of been one of my things at this time. But I feel now I have to deliver this particular warning. And it's a warning for London. And I want to give it because I want to give you, especially if you live in London, the chance to do something different with your life, because you don't have much time. Really, you don't. We are living in the last days. And if you think I'm joking about that, I'm not. We are living in the last times and the end days, which is all prophesied in the Bible. And if you're a Christian, you should have read this. You should have read the Old Testament prophecies, particularly Daniel and Ezekiel, Isaiah, all these great prophets of the past. And you should have read the New Testament prophecies. You should have read the prophecies for the end days given by Jesus himself in Matthew chapter 24. Read it if you never have. It's frightening, but it's a prediction made by Jesus himself. And finally, there is the book of Revelation. You probably looked at that and thought, what the heck? You know, all these dragons coming out of the sea with horns, and what's this all about? It's complete nonsense. It's not. It's all in symbolic language, images to do with history, to do with time periods, to do with rulerships and kingdoms and empires, and to do with our own time, and to do with the satanic attack that's happening on the church, in particular, on the Christian church. I call it the church because there's really only one. I'm not a sectarian. I was brought up as a Roman Catholic, but I don't go along with that now. I regard myself as a non-denominational Christian. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I've actually met Jesus Christ in spirit. And he actually put his mark on my forehead. Make of that what you will. But you need that mark as well if you're a Christian. You need not only to believe in him, you need him to know you. It says that specifically in the Bible, in the New Testament. It says people come along and say, well, Master, I believe in you. I do all these things. And he turns to them and he says, well, I don't know who you are. Go away. You need to be known. You need to stand up and announce yourself and ask. And if you've been doing wrong in this life, and come on, we all have, haven't we? I'm no angel. I've done things in my past that I wish I hadn't, and I'm sure you have too. But I do try to do my best, and I do ask God for forgiveness for the transgressions I've made in the past. You know, we're all prodigal sons and daughters, aren't we? But if you are going to follow the devil, well, expect the consequences which are described in the book of Revelation. Now, here's the actual vision that I had concerning London. This is what I saw. I saw the River Thames. It was flooded, and it was flooded way up high. And I looked at Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge is the one that goes up and down like this. It's called Tower Bridge because it's near the Tower of London. It's not the same as London Bridge. But I saw Tower Bridge, the one they put on all the postcards, the one that goes up and down, flooded halfway up, the two towers on either side of it. It's a Victorian bridge, actually. The whole of London, the basin of London, was flooded. Now, how could that happen? Well, we do have warnings for floods in London. You may not realise this, but the whole of the southeast of England is sinking, gradually, very slowly, but it is actually sinking. And there are rivers. Britain is a very tidal country. We get very big differences between high tide and low tide. It can be meters, many meters. And in a place like London, at high tide, the water comes up the Thames estuary. It doesn't go, the river's flowing that way, but the flood water, the tide, can push back up. And so they put a flood barrier just below Greenwich to stop. The barrier rises to hold the waters the other side of it so it doesn't flood into London. But that flood barrier is actually, the waters are going steadily higher and they're using it more and more often. And there's going to come a time before too long, they recognise this, when it's no longer enough and the waters will go over the top. So there is that. And there's also the risk of heavy rainfall and especially if there's also been snow on the ground and the place is waterlogged, the River Thames itself can carry large amounts of water. The Thames Valley goes all the way up to Oxfordshire and slightly beyond, I think, into Gloucestershire. Almost touches the River Severn, actually. And there's all these tributaries going into it. So it can carry a massive amount of water. And that water has to pass through London. And at one time, London, the Thames, the River Thames was a much wider river than it is now. Because of, civilization and the need for land, we've pushed it back. We built barriers and walls to enclose and make the stream more narrow than it used to be. It used to be a great big flooded marsh with islands in it originally. Certainly in Roman times and before, it was like that. So there is a risk here, and it's not a joke to say that this could happen, this flood. But I think it was something even more than that. I think it was a kind of tsunami coming in. I don't know what would cause a tsunami. It might be something fell into the North Sea. I don't know. But anyway, there was a load of water, and the river had flooded right up, halfway up the towers of Tower Bridge. Now, my view shifted then, and I found myself in front of Victoria Station on the railway track leading into it, perhaps a few hundred yards from the station, maybe around the Vauxhall area if you know London. And as I looked, I saw this gigantic angel, enormous figure, as tall as a skyscraper, standing there. And his angel was holding balances in one hand and a sword in the other. It was like the figure you see on top of the Old Bailey in London, where the law courts are. And there's the figure of justice on top of the dome, on top of the law courts. And that's the figure of justice, and it's blindfold and holding a sword and scales. But this angel wasn't blindfold. It was holding these scales, and it was holding this sword. And as I looked, it was standing on the railway tracks, as I say, that lead into Victoria Station. But it was above the river, so it wasn't flooded there. And as I looked, I saw there were souls gathered around the feet of this angel. The souls were, all of them completely naked, male and female. And they were standing there very passive. Obviously they had died, and they were now souls. And they were naked, they weren't in bodies. And I saw the angel stoop down with his sword, and he placed it down, and the souls would step onto the tip, the end tip of the sword, a few at a time, and he would put them into the scales. He would put the white in one side and the black in the other. Yeah, the souls were white and black. Now this, I was told it by a voice, was nothing to do with race. It was to do with good and bad. And the good souls were put in one side, the white ones, and the bad souls who'd done evil were put in the other side. So it was Judgment Day, and these souls were being judged. And I saw myself then, I was, normal size, standing at the feet of the angel, and I was given the instruction that I had to pick up the clothes of these dead people, these souls, and I had to put them in a trunk, and I had this trunk to put them in. Now, I was dressed in sort of Eastern robes, kind of purple robe, and I had a turban on with a big diadem in the middle of the forehead, and I don't know what that signified. But anyway, I was obviously some kind of, prince or king or maharaja or something like that. And I had the job of putting the clothes into the trunk. And much, much later, I realised what that symbolism was drawing on. My mother was a ballet teacher, She had her own ballet school, and she had been trained in all sorts of different types of folk dances and all sorts of things. And she, taught kids, and she taught ballet to the kids, particularly obviously little girls. And she taught Spanish dancing to their mothers. She was very good at flamenco. You could play the castanets like a native. And she had a load of dressing up clothes from various pageants that she had put on. That was her thing. She put on pageants. And all these clothes left over from the pageants were in a big trunk. And we used to take them out and put them on and dress up. Kids love that, don't they? And eventually she donated that to my school that I went to, that trunk with all of the dressing up clothes, for things like nativity plays. And I myself have been in a nativity play and played the part of Melchior. It's one of the three kings. Melchior means king of gold. Melchi means king, and or means gold. So he must be the one who brought the gold. Anyway, so I think it was a reference to that, the dressing up and putting on clothes and then taking them off when you're dead. And that's to do with life in this world, that you, underneath everything, you are a soul. You are not what you think you are. Your body is just the garment that you wear during this life. And you've worn maybe many garments before. You played other roles, other parts. You maybe been a king, you've been a pauper, you've done all sorts of stuff. But at the root of it, you are a soul. And the souls are what are being judged. And I was given the task of putting the clothes back in the trunk. And I think that has a connection with all my studies I've done on ancient history and trying to see the pattern. So, the dressing up clothes in the trunk, I think, symbolizes knowledge about past lives, actually. And they need to understand that. But the idea that time is passing, we're not going to be able to carry on doing this. This earth itself is changing. It's graduation day, and on graduation day, you're going to get judged on all you did. If you've been to university, you might have spent 3 years messing around. Eventually you have to take an exam to see if you're going to get a degree or not. So you have a certain amount of time on this earth, and eventually you're going to get judged. They're going to take out all the records and have a look and see what you've done and who you are and what you've achieved and what you haven't achieved. And if you had taken the side of evil, or if you've taken the side of good. Now we're living in a very, very dangerous time, because we're living at the time when the choice is going to be, are you going to take the mark of Jesus? And I said, put a mark on your forehead. It says that in the book of Revelation. Or are you going to take the mark of the beast? Now the beast, you've heard about 666, the number of the beast. That 666 refers to King Solomon, actually, who was the son of King David in ancient Israel. King Solomon started off wise. He was a good king to start, but he got corrupted and he became greedy, and he taxed the people really hard, and he couldn't have enough money, and he couldn't have enough wives and concubines. I think he had sort of 800 concubines and 200 wives or something ridiculous like that. And they led him into evil, worshipping false gods and all sorts of stuff. And the result of that was judgment on Israel, the ancient Israel, which was split in two. We've been talking about that in some of my other lectures. There was a northern kingdom, which is still called Israel, with 10 tribes. And there was a southern kingdom with just 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, plus the priesthood, who were the Levites. And they formed a second kingdom in the southern part of what had been ancient Israel. and the northern kingdom was carried away by the Assyrians. We've been discussing that. The southern kingdom survived a bit longer, and eventually they were carried away by the Babylonians, and then they came back and rebuilt the temple. They went through the period of the Maccabees, and eventually the Romans invaded, and you had the time of Jesus, and then you had the uprising of the Jews against the Romans, the harsh putting down of that uprising, Masada and all of that, and eventually you had the Emperor Hadrian, who banished them altogether out of the Holy Land, and the Jews became wanderers among the nations until 1948, when they returned. Well, the Jews did, but not all the Israelites did. So this is all in history, and this is all to do with that. But we are in a very, very dangerous time now, because we have in the world the rising of the beast, and the beast represents a whole world system based on control of the people, dominance, tyranny, and putting a mark on them. And there were also plans afoot to reduce the population of the world markedly. You maybe heard of the Georgia stones. They put up a thing like a mini Stonehenge and have all in different languages. I'll see if I can find an image of it, and I'll put that up for you to see. And they stated openly that the earth is overpopulated, and they want to reduce the population to 500 million. Well, I don't know about you. Who are going to be the 500 million out of 7 billion, or maybe it's 8 billion by now, I don't know. Probably not you and I. So we're living in a very dangerous time when there are several things going on at once. And on the one hand, we've got greedy people who want to take control of the entire planet and all of everything and own everything, and you would own nothing. So there's a sort of, what's that movie? The Mockingbird one, the Hunger Games. We're living, approaching that. That's the outcome which would lead to that. On the other hand, we're living at a time of vast earth changes going to be happening. And this flooding of the Thames and flooding of London would be just part of that. So I want to warn you about this. If you're a Christian, or you have been a Christian in the past, and you've decided, well, there's no such thing as God, it's nonsense, that science is where it's at, and if you only be scientific about things, Adrian, you'd understand. Well, I am pretty scientific about things. I probably know more about science than most people. And I can see that a lot of what you're taught as science, the word science actually means knowledge. Scientia means knowledge in Latin. It's not knowledge at all, it's theory. Knowledge is something that, is always going to be. This is how it is. But there are things, experiments are done to show, I drop a pencil, it's going to go down, because of gravity. That's science, that's true. But there's theories that underpin all that, and theories about things, for instance, about evolution, theories about astronomy, that just theories. They don't know. They've not been to the sun. They've not been to the centre of the Milky Way. They've not observed any kind of real evolution happening, just variance, like differences between different breeds of dogs. At root, dogs are all dogs, and you let them interbreed again, they'll go back to being the standard dog, which is sort of brown and mongrelly. So it's how species are created is something that is not understood by science whatsoever, and it's a theory, but it's one that's been promulgated because it suits certain people to do that. And you've got to see the truth about creation, the truth about who you are as a soul, and you've got to think about, do you want to be rescued or not? Because believe it or not, the whole thing about the Bible and Christianity that flows from the earlier Israelite and Jewish tradition and also harks back to what was going on in ancient Egypt long before that. It wasn't all bad there, you know. There's a very high culture and civilization at one time. You've got to think about, you know, the rescue mission that's been mounted for us here on this fallen planet. Do you want to be in the lifeboat that's come to fetch you from the Titanic as it's sinking? Or you're going to say, no, I don't believe in the lifeboat. I'll swim, I'll get there, don't worry about me. Well, good luck with that. And this is a warning to London, but I think this warning applies not just to London, it applies to everywhere, particularly the big cities in Britain, but also in America and Europe. You're under attack because you're Christian. These are Christian nations, and they're under attack deliberately. And if you don't see that, you're blind. And that's what you've got to understand. And I'm not preaching racism or homophobia or anything like that. It's all between you personally and your God. And you've got to reconcile yourself with that. And, open yourself to finding the truth. Ask for it. Ask and you'll be healed and you'll be helped. Ask. If you don't ask, it won't be given to you. If you say, Lord, please help me. I know I'm ignorant. I know nothing. I've been stupid. I've been ignorant. I've done things I wish I hadn't. Please forgive me and help me and show me the way. If you do that sincerely in your heart, you will be given. You will be helped. But if you ignore the possibility that you're going to be put in the black side of the scales, and you're going to be out in the outer darkness with the gnashing of teeth. So that's my warning. And please share this video with your friends, with everyone you know, because it's very, very important that we wake up at this time. We don't have much time. Really, we're talking, it could happen at any day. It's that serious. I can't say to you that it's going to be 100 years' time. Don't worry, it's not going to be in your lifetime. It may very well be this year, next year, a few years hence. It's going to be very, very soon. So don't waste the opportunity, your last opportunity, to do something about it. So thank you very much. And, I've got other work to do, so I must get on with things. Thank you again. Bye.